Hey, it's Hawken with TOPDON, and today we're coming back to you with a video on the new thermal imaging camera, TC005. So this is a brand new product for TOPDON. This is our newest generation of thermal imaging tools, and we do make the TC004 and the TC005, which are both the handheld style like this. Now you're asking yourself, what might I use a thermal imager for? Frankly, you can use it for more things than you can probably even imagine right off the top of your head. If you're in the automotive world, you can use it for a variety of different things for analysis, including things like checking for electrical issues. So you might be wondering, well, what are you looking for, right? If we're dealing with electrical problems on a vehicle, basically what we're looking for is a temperature increase, right? So increased electrical resistance will cause an increase in heat, or a temperature increase, right? So this is something we want to pay attention to when we are using a thermal imager. We can look at things like connectors on the back of a module. We can look at things like wires that pass throughout the vehicle and look for resistance as a result of something like corrosion. So there's really a lot of things we can spot with a thermal imager, especially a thermal imager that's very sensitive like the TC005. TC005, if we're looking at the specifications, goes from -4 degrees all the way up to 1022 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can look at anything from exhaust all the way to cooling systems, electrical stuff, things of that nature. So there's really a whole lot we can look at with this. Now, you'll see on a lot of newer vehicles have very sophisticated thermal management. So that's respect to where the coolant is flowing within the engine and transmission at any given moment. We can actually see that with the TC005, which is hugely helpful if you're trying to find clogs or things of that nature with respect to the coolant flow on the vehicle. You can find blocked heater cores, anything in between like that. You can also look at heated seats, the panel that's in the seat itself to see if you have a dead spot, something that isn't heating up. That would be like a dead coil. But again, numerous different things you can look at with a thermal imager. Really, the potential is limitless. You can also look at chassis issues. So we know that increased electrical resistance will create an increase in heat. That's also true of an increased mechanical resistance. So if we have increased mechanical resistance, we will also see an increase in temperature as a result of that as well. And again, TC005 can see that. Now we can take pictures with the tool. We can also take videos with the tool. Now this is really helpful if we're trying to communicate information visually to our customers and show them what might be wrong with their vehicle. So again, can't stress just how valuable it is to have access to a tool like this. And at an MSRP of only around $350 US, kind of a crazy value, really. Now, it can also be used for a variety of other things. One other thing in the automotive world that comes to mind is if we're looking at electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, we could find additional resistance in any battery bank. So if you have a bad cell that's heating up as a function of the cell is defective, you're going to see that with this. So it'd also be good to verify if there's a thermal event happening on a EV or hybrid vehicle, which of course could be used for safety purposes, especially for fire departments and things of that nature. So really, you can use this inside or outside the automotive field. You can use it for heat loss analysis in a house. So anybody who's doing HVAC contracting or things of that nature, tons of value in the tool for that as well. So anyhow, we'll go through a bunch of the features today and show you all of the different settings and the menus and everything of that nature, and also show you some sample images just so you can kind of get a feel for all of the things that this can really do. All right, so a couple of things we're going to look at here is we do have a bunch of different controls on the tool here. We also have a tripod screw-in mount, which is really helpful if you want to look at something like, let's say, a battery draw, right? We could aim the camera at a specific spot on the vehicle, and we could screw it onto the camera and then start a video and record the video and then go back and review it as fast as we want in a time-lapse mode, which of course would allow us to see if a specific relay or fuse is starting to get hot while the vehicle is supposed to be in sleep mode. So again, tremendously useful feature of the tool. again on the TC005. So just something to keep in mind as you're looking at your tools and thinking about what you might use them for. Okay, so we're going to give you just a quick run through of all the settings and options here we have in the menu. So we'll just talk about the display here first and kind of what you're seeing. So we do have our temperature range as far as the minimum and maximum, and also the average where the main spot is aimed. Then we've also got our date and time up in the top there. And of course we also have our battery life indicator in the top right. The crosshairs in the center is actually going to give you a temperature reading right at the crosshairs. We've also got our emissivity down here on the bottom left. Now you'll want to do a Google search if you don't understand what emissivity is. That's something you'll want to educate yourself on if you're going to use thermal imaging as a tool. Then we've got our various buttons we have access to here. We've got playback here so we can look at images we've recorded. We've got our back button here. We've got a little light button here which allows us to turn on a small flashlight that the thermal imager actually has built in. Kind of a cool feature. Got our power button down in the bottom right. And then we have our four-way with a click button in the center, which is what we're going to use to go into menus. So first one, we have measurement. So this allows us to change the targeting spot for the crosshairs. So we've got center, hotspot, so this will pick up the hottest spots in the picture, coldest spot, and then also closest spot. So just a couple of cool things you can modify there. We'll hit our back button. We've got our view mode, which allows us to see infrared, fuse, which is a combination of thermal and regular picture, picture in picture, which is basically thermal in the middle and regular picture around the outside. You've got visible, which is just a standard camera. So you could use this to take a baseline picture before you take the thermal image, and then you could take the image again in the thermal image after taking the visible image. Then we've got alignment, which is essentially like an offset picture, a combination of thermal and regular. I typically live in the infrared menu. That's my personal preference. We've also got access to the palette here. The palette allows us to change the color scheme. So we've got white hot, which basically turns everything that's cooler dark, and the hotter points lighter. We've got the inverse of that, which is basically turns everything white, and then the hottest points black. You've got iron, which is a real common one on a lot of thermal imagers you see out in the field. Lava, which is the setting I typically use. Rainbow, which is another common setting you'll see on a lot of thermal imagers. And then we've got rainbow high contrast, which is a really awesome one that I definitely use pretty frequently. And last, we've got red gray. This is probably my newest favorite. So basically, everything that's cooler is generally going to be fairly gray, and the hotter temperatures are going to be red. So pretty sweet to be able to have access to all of these different settings. Again, lava just happens to be the default I typically stick to. So then we can go into our settings menu, and we'll give you a rundown of all the different stuff we've got access to here. It's got measurement parameters here at the top. We can change things like emissivity and temperature floor. You can also change our target distance. So that's the target distance we're going to be expecting to have the tool away from what we're examining. Temperature scale, we can change from low range, which is -3 to 302 Fahrenheit, or 212 to 1022. So make sure you know what the general range of what you're looking at is going to be. We've got a high and low alert that we can actually tell the tool to set for thresholds, and these are all customizable, which is pretty sweet. Can also turn on an LED alert, which is a pretty awesome feature. So it'll actually set off an LED if you exceed either of the thresholds you set. Photo setting, probably want to change this to the autosave on, just to make sure you're not missing out on information. Temperature unit, this one allows you to change between Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. Date and time, we can change our date and time settings, and whether or not we want to display those. Language, we can modify our language. Display brightness, we can change up or down as needed to see the screen better. Auto power off, this would be something you would want to turn off if you're going to shoot a long-term video on something like a battery draw on a vehicle. And then you would want to open the flap on the top of the tool and plug in your USB-C cable so that the battery does not go dead on the thermal imager. Otherwise, it'll automatically default to turn itself off within the time setting you set up. Device info lets you see your device information. You can also do a factory reset if the tool is malfunctioning. You can format your SD card, and the USB mode. This is something pretty unique. So you can actually use it as a USB disk, so when you plug it in, this will allow you to retrieve videos and pictures from the tool. Or if you change it to USB camera, you can actually mirror the image, and your PC should recognize it as an external camera, which then allows you to see whatever the thermal imager is seeing on your PC. So that's a pretty cool feature that I have not seen in a thermal imager frequently. So again, pretty sweet to be able to have access to that. So that's the basic run through of all the stuff we have in the tool. We'll show you some sample images and a couple of sample videos just so you can get a little bit more of a feel for what this thing can do. Just wanted to thank you for taking the time to watch our video on the TC005. Again, I can't stress just what an awesome value this tool is and all of the different things you can do with this. It's a very powerful tool, has great capabilities, and again, the ability to share images both in video format as well as in pictures is a huge asset when you're trying to communicate with your customers and demonstrate to them what might be going on with a vehicle, with their house, anything that you're examining with a thermal imager, right? So again, can't stress just how awesome this tool is and how much you're going to get a lot of value out of it if you purchase one. So hopefully you found this video helpful for the overview of the tool. If you do have questions about the tool or you run into any concerns that you need assistance with, please visit topdon.us if you're in North America. Otherwise, visit topdon.com and click on the support tab if you are outside North America. Thanks again for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get all of the updates on our tools. And again, thanks for watching.